Hey yo guys, welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews. We have this thing on our channel where every once in a while one of us will try to get the other one into a band that we know they never really listened to before. Never really give them the time of day. So today, TV Fish is going to try to get me into a band. I have no idea what band it is, but we're going to listen to an album today. It'll be my first impressions, and it'll kind of be his final review next week when we review it. But I'm interested to know what band this is, what album we're going to listen to today. So without further ado, let's hear it. Drum roll, please. What is it? What are we getting into?
All right, so today we're going to be having Vile's first impressions of Holographic Universe by Symmetry.
All right, well, that's an interesting choice. I never saw that coming.
Yeah, like I knew, like for the whole time we've had, before to do one of these videos again, I knew he's thinking, it's probably going to be Dream Theater, it's probably going to be whatever band. I'm like, you know what? Symmetry. Because this album, Holographic Universe, is one of my favorite music albums of all time.
Wow.
This album is incredible for me. One of my friends got me into it a long time ago, and it blew my mind when I first listened to it. I'm like, holy shit, this album's incredible. I checked out.
You're hyping it up pretty good.
I'm hyping it up because this album's very special to me. It's so good. Christian Alvestam really makes this album for me. I checked out some of their other stuff, and I feel like earlier Symmetry is solid because it has Christian Alvestam, who is the singer. And later, like after this album, Christian Alvestam left the band. So I feel like a lot of what made this band left with him. And Unseen Empire was okay, and Dark Matter Dimensions was also okay, and then the Singularity Phase 1, I listened to it, I'm like, this is kind of like a parody of itself. It doesn't really feel like the same kind of Symmetry to me, but this album, I felt is the pinnacle of this band.
Well,
so
you know what?
I'm really hyped for you to check this out.
I'm hyped too. I'm curious to check it out and get into it. I really have very little, if any, knowledge about this band at all. I want to say that I've heard a song or two here and there, but I honestly do not remember at all. So let's go listen to it. Let's go dive in. We're going to go listen to the album in its entirety for my first time. He's heard it a million times. But then we'll be back, and I'll give you guys my first impression on whatever this album's called by Symmetry.
Alright guys, welcome back. We just listened to Holographic Universe by Symmetry for his very first time. It's been a lot of times for me, so I'm just going to give the floor right here to Vile. What did you think of this album after your first time listening to it in its entirety?
I thought it was great. I really enjoyed listening to the album. There was some lows amongst the highs, but overall, I thought this was a pretty enjoyable album. I got thrown off guard a little bit because, like I said at the beginning, I've never really listened to Symmetry before. If I have heard them, I really don't remember much of it at all. So when the album first kicks off, it starts off, and then you get like some clean vocals almost right out the gate, right? And I'm like, oh no, like I'm not a huge fan of clean vocals. Clean vocals are very touchy for me. They have to meet a certain standard. I don't even know exactly what the criteria is, but if I like the voice, I like it. If I don't, I don't. That's basically it. It's cut and dry, right? So the clean vocals start, and immediately I kind of roll my eyes, and I'm like, okay, I'm in for a task here. I gotta now start judging these vocals. But it didn't take me long to start going, wow, this guy's got a pretty nice voice. It's not just like a lot of clean vocalists are kind of just getting by, just passing it off, like just barely scraping the barrel of a decent clean vocal. But this guy, whose name I don't know, Christian Alvestam, he has actually a really nice voice. Now you mentioned he's the only singer on this album, in this band, and I found that his vocal range was pretty impressive, which you did talk about that as well. He goes from like deep gutturals to high cleans like that.
Yeah.
Now it's not the first time I've ever heard stuff like that. I've heard that before. It reminded me of Into Eternity, if you guys have ever heard of them. They're a band from Canada. I don't even know if they're still around, but I was into them like 10 or 12 years ago. But very similar situation where the singer did a lot of highs, a lot of lows, the growls, the high-pitched singing, with the cleans. Reminded me a lot of that, but this I felt was done a little better. I felt like this guy was more schooled vocally, maybe more just gifted vocally. But his vocals definitely stand out, and when you realize it's only one guy doing it, you it's impressive. It's impressive. Another thing that stood out a lot on this album was the guitar work. I'm not sure if every song has a solo, but I'd say the bulk of the songs definitely have solos. They're pretty shreddy. They're pretty, lots of notes, lots of fast, crazy stuff, which I really like. Even in the riffing, there's some scale riffing, if that's what you call it, when they do the scales on the guitar. I really like that. I don't like it when bands do it too much. There's certain bands that do it way too much. This wasn't too much, at least on my first impressions listen. I didn't think it was, it wasn't getting in the way. The drums sounded good. Nice, fast, nice double kick. What else? The album was proggy, which is, as soon as I started hearing the proggy stuff, like, what was the first song? I go, yeah, there was like a 30-second section. I go, I know this is the reason why you like this album. And I heard parts like that throughout the whole album. Now, I've mentioned this before on this channel. I'm not a huge fan of proggy metal. He is, which is why he probably picked this band. I didn't feel like this was overly proggy, which is good for me. I felt like there was maybe just enough sprinkled in there where it was interesting. It kept things fresh and kept things, going and on a nice pace, but it didn't get to the point where I was going, come on, like, switch it up, like, I find a lot of proggy bands are like that, where they just, they switch things up a lot, but they might play the same boring part a little too long. I don't know. This band didn't seem to do that, at least on this album, so that's a plus as well. I'll tell you about one of my worries. One of my initial, like, things I thought I was gonna have to deal with is I thought the songs were gonna start blending together too much, and I was gonna start getting this vibe that the songs all kind of sound the same, and there's no individuality amongst the tracks. But I didn't find that at all. I felt like each song kind of stood out and had its own kind of vibe, even though they all shared very similar elements. I still feel like that they had their own individual personality to them, which is very good. And the more I listen to it, the more I'll be able to pick out those individualities, which I also really like. That's one of the things that can possibly make an album a toe tag album for me, is when I can pick out individuality in each song, and there's no songs that really, like, sound alike. As far as real downfalls go, there's a couple songs I gave low scores. Trapezoid, I gave a 4. That's track number 8. I just wrote that I'm not feeling it. I said it sounds almost not like pop music, but like it was almost trying to be the radio hit of this album, which that's the kind of vibe I got from it.
It's funny you say that, because that was not the single from this album.
What was the single?
The first track, More for Genesis, was the single. Had a music video.
What did I write for that one? So the very first note I wrote, we'll have to get used to the clean vocals, right? Just like I said. But I also wrote that it had a really slick solo, and that was also something that reoccurred throughout the album, slick solos in many songs. The next song I gave a low score to, though, was 3-Dimensional Shadow. I just wasn't feeling it, but like any song you listen to, if you listen to it again or multiple times, it could grow on you, which is why we listen to albums and songs multiple times before we judge them. So, with all that said, I think my first impressions was pretty good, and being new to Scar Symmetry, this is a fresh take for me. So I'm going to listen to this album on full rotation for the rest of the week, and then next week we'll be back, and I'll give you guys my final review, and he'll give his review on Holographic Universe by Scar Symmetry. Is there anything you would like to add before we sign off this motherfucker?
Not exactly. I mean, I'm glad that you enjoyed the album on your first impression. I love this album from the bottom of my heart, so I'm excited to review it next week for you guys. That's about it. So be sure to like the video if you guys liked it, subscribe for more, and tell me what you think of Scar Symmetry if you guys are into them. Do you like the earlier Scar Symmetry with Christian Alveston, or do you like the newer stuff without him? I personally like all the stuff with him.
And I don't know yet. I'm undecided. But anyways, leave your thoughts below. Like, subscribe. We'll see you guys on the next one. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
Later, guys.